My name is Jenny Kistler. I work for Goodwill Keystone area. I work for a program called Work Incentives Planning and Assistance. And we're going to go through what we do, how you can contact us, and a few work incentives that do apply to transition-aged youth. So what is WIPA? WIPA is an acronym. It stands for Work Incentives Planning and Assistance, and we provide individualized, in-depth, employment-focused benefits counseling and work incentives planning to all 50 states and U.S. territories. So as I work for Goodwill Keystone area, there are 3 programs in Pennsylvania, in the western part of the state ahead, and in the Philadelphia area, Disability Rights Pennsylvania covers that area. So each state can have several WIPA programs or one WIPA program. It depends on their disability population. So there are 3 in Pennsylvania, but I do cover this area, the Goodwill Keystone area. So it is a critical component of the national effort to improve employment outcomes for Social Security disability beneficiaries. There are a lot of rumors out there about what happens when somebody, goes to work. And it's really important that people go in with knowledge. I hear I can only work 20 hours, or if I, earn any amount of money, they're going to take my disability check away. And that is not the case. So that is why my program is around, to provide individuals and families and teachers with the knowledge of the work incentives. So what do we provide? We do long and short-term work incentives planning. And we give information to the individuals who have general questions about the impact of earnings on their benefits. And then we can also refer to employment support services and other agencies and organizations that can assist a beneficiary return to work and be successful. You are eligible for WIPA. It's pretty simple. You have to be disabled per Social Security's definition. You have to already be receiving some type of disability benefit, which could be SSI, or a Title II benefit, which is SSDI, childhood disability benefits, or disabled widower benefits. And you have to be at least age 18 or 14, but not yet full retirement age. So it's pretty simple. You have to be receiving disability benefits and at least 14, but not yet full retirement. So the importance of WIPA services during transition. It's really important for an individual to proactively manage their benefits as the person works. And there are several key work incentives that someone may utilize while they are in school and working. And then there's a lot of changes that can occur with benefits throughout the transition process. The biggest change of somebody going through transition is what they call age 18 redetermination. So somewhere between the person's 18th and 19th birthday, an individual who was receiving SSI previous to the 18th birthday will receive a redetermination letter. And that's simply because the definition of a childhood disability is different than the definition of an adult disability. So the big one that we refer to is ADHD. That could qualify for somebody, for a child, for disability benefits, but when they become an adult, that does not meet the definition of disability for an adult. So it's strictly a medical determination, and work does not impact that decision at all. So just because a person's working doesn't mean that they're automatically not going to get, redetermined disabled. It's strictly medical. And there is a work incentive that if somebody has an IEP, or they're open with the OVR and have a plan, or they have a past plan, there's a section 301, and that can potentially allow for the continuation of benefits despite being determined no longer eligible. So that's a really good work incentive, and you can actually appeal if you're determined not disabled per the adult standards, you can actually appeal that decision and continue to get your SSI benefits through the Section 301 provision. So SSI, that is supplemental security income, and that is what most individuals would get in the transition age. However, that's not the only thing they could be eligible for, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the presentation. In order to get SSI, you have to have a qualifying disability that prevents or severely limits you from working at what they call a substantial gainful activity level. That amount in 2021 will be $1,310 per month gross. That's before taxes are taken out for non-blind. If a person's determined statutory blind, then their amount is $2,190 per month gross. You have to have limited income and resources. That amount this year is $2,000, and that will be the same amount next year, as far as I know. For a person, for an eligible couple, it's $3,000. And the most that somebody's going to be able to receive in 2021 is $816.10. $794 is the full federal benefit rate for SSI next year. And then Pennsylvania kicks in $22.10. And as far as I know, that is not going up next year. It hasn't since I've been doing this job. And the amount of somebody's SSI cash benefit is going to depend on how much other monthly income they receive. And in Pennsylvania, you automatically receive Medicaid if you get SSI. So SSI and gross wages. For SSI purposes, Social Security will look at your gross earnings that are when they're received. So if you get paid twice in a month, they will count both of those paychecks. Sometimes, you get an extra paycheck in a month. And so they would look at all three of those paychecks. Important to note that Social Security is 2 months behind. So it is December. You've already gotten your December SSI check. You got that in the beginning of the month. But you're working in December. So you will report your earnings for December in the beginning of January, but you've already gotten your January check. So they will look at February adjusting your check for your December earnings. So I just like to remind people of that. If somebody doesn't have a set schedule, let's say they work in retail, December is really busy. Maybe in January, your hours fall back. So it's just important for budgeting purposes just to remember that. So the basic SSI calculation. So a lot of times I will get the question of, well, how many hours can I work? And, how much can I get paid an hour? Well, for SSI, there's no set amount of hours that you can work. There's no set amount of money that you can earn an hour. It's all about your gross earnings, and they will adjust the SSI check accordingly. So the basic SSI calculation is they take your gross monthly earnings that you receive, and then they subtract $85 from that. $20 is a general income exclusion, and $65 is an earned income exclusion. So right off the bat, they're taking $85 off of your gross earnings. Then they take that remainder and they divide it by 2. And they come up with a number, what's called your countable earned income. So then they will take the maximum SSI amount eligible for somebody to receive, and then they will subtract the countable earned income from that and get your adjusted monthly SSI cash benefits. So we look at an example. So if I make $800 gross monthly earnings, then they take $85 off of that. So then I'm down to $715, and then they divide that by 2. So even though I'm earning $800, they're only going to count $357.50 of that. So then they'll take if I get the full benefit rate of $794, and they will subtract $357.50. So my adjusted SSI cash benefit would be $436.50. So as you can see, no matter what you do when you're getting SSI and you're working, you're always going to come out financially ahead. So now you're at a total monthly income of $1,236.50 because you have your wages and your SSI check versus $794 if you didn't work. So there again, obviously you can see financially, you're going to come out ahead at the end of the month. But there's a special work incentive for students who receive SSI. It's called a student earned income exclusion. And it allows a person who is under the age of 22 and regularly attending school to exclude earnings that are counted toward adjusting that SSI cash payment. In 2021, the monthly exclusion is $1,930 and up to a yearly maximum of $7,770 in 2021 of your countable earnings. You do have to let Social Security know that you are a student. They don't automatically know that when you call in to report that you're working. They may require proof. You may need to get a letter from your school on their letterhead stating that you are a student, and then they will apply that work incentive for you. So you have to request it. They won't automatically just start applying the student earned income exclusion if you don't request it. Tell them you are a student and send in proof if they request it. So if we go back and look at that SSI calculation, if you're taking your $800 gross monthly earnings, and then they're going to take $800 off of that because that's going to be the student earned income exclusion. So then you're not going to have any countable earned income, and your SSI cash benefits not reduced at all. So now you're looking at $1,594 with your $800 and your $794 SSI versus just your $794. So sometimes this does come in handy because if a student is working, they want to keep their paycheck. But sometimes that SSI check is needed to, pay for things in the household. And then that way it's a win-win, whereas the student gets to keep their money, and then the family, if they would need it, gets to keep the full SSI amounts. Now that will stop when they are done with school, but then it gives a person time to try to work, and then their SSI check's not getting adjusted at all. So the next question I get a lot of is, what about my Medicaid? So if somebody would make so much money, that they would stop getting their SSI check, that's called hitting the break-even point. So somebody's not kicked off of SSI, they're just in non-pay status due to excess income. And in Pennsylvania, somebody can keep their Medicaid and SSI eligibility until their gross yearly earnings reach $38,719. That is the number for 2020. We typically don't get the new numbers until the beginning of next year. So we won't have 2021 numbers until maybe March or April of next year. And most recipients who work are eligible for the 1619B. So again, if you would make so much money that you wouldn't get your SSI check, you would still be eligible for your Medicaid under this great work incentive that Social Security offers. And that's just not when you're a student. This is after graduation. This is anybody who is on SSI. To qualify, pretty simple. You have to have lost your monthly SSI cash payments because of earnings from work. So if you lose the cash payment for another reason, such as excess resources or excess unearned income, that doesn't fall under the 1619B category. And you have to have been eligible for an SSI cash payment for at least 1 month and still meet the SSI disability and resource limit. So you have to have your resources underneath that $2,000 mark, and you have to maintain your medical eligibility for SSI. And you have to need Medicaid in order to work. And basically that's just, you need to see a doctor once a year. And again, there's that income limit of $38,719 for PA residents in 2020. Every state's different threshold, and every year it usually changes. So knowing, what benefit you get and how that's going to look is great. But the really important part also is reporting your earnings to SSI, to Social Security. There are no, alarm bells that go off down in Social Security office saying, Jimmy got a job. You have to let Social Security know so they can adjust that check. Now, again, when you're a student and you have that student earned income exclusion, it's still important to report just because they have to track that amount that you're using, because there is a monthly and calendar year cap. So that they need to be able to track that and make sure that you don't go over those limits. But then after, you would either go through that or you would graduate, then they will need to adjust that check monthly. So it is important to notify Social Security that you are working. You can call the 1-800 number, and this is something that my program, the WIPA program, we are CWIC's Community Work Incentives Coordinators, and we can certainly sit down and explain how to report earnings. Social Security has tried to make it much easier, but the hardest part is initially reporting the job, and then you can get set up a couple different ways. So with SSI, wages can be reported by visiting, calling, or writing Social Security. Now, unless you have a contact in the Social Security office, I would not recommend just sending in a letter. You just don't know where that letter is going to end up when you send it in. Once you report that you are working, you can be set up to report a couple different ways. There is an automated toll-free number that you can call. It's a telephone wage reporting service. And then there's also an SSI mobile wage reporting app for your smartphone. So you could be set up for that. But you can't just download the app and start, plugging things in, and you can't just, call up the reporting service and start reporting that way. Social Security has to set you up for it. So you have to make that initial call to them or visit to them for you to get set up to be able to report your earnings at all. You can also report through a My Social Security account. So hopefully most of you have a My Social Security account. And if you don't, I would recommend that you do. You just have to go online. They ask you some questions. You have to answer them to verify that you are who you say you are. You set up a username and password, and then you can go in there. If you need a verification letter, those are in there. And then you can also report your earnings through this portal also. You have to be set up for that also. They have to go in and link you to your employer so that you can go in then and report your wages. And you can sign up for to receive email and or text messages every month to remind you to report. And as you can see on my PowerPoint slide, I do have the site that you can go on to sign up for that. So it is a nice service that if you think that maybe you're going to forget that you have to report your earnings, that you can get reminders so that you can contact Social Security. Because even if you don't report your earnings, it's possible that they will continue to reduce your check based on the previous month. So if you call in and you say, I'm working 20 hours a week, making $8 an hour, they're going to take that and run with it. So unless you tell them otherwise, so maybe your hours get cut one month and you're only working 10 hours a week, $8 an hour, well, that's going to look a lot different. But unless you send them your pay stubs, they aren't going to know that you only worked 10 hours a week. They're going to assume you worked the 20 and adjust your check that way. So it's really important to let Social Security know of any changes. If you get a raise, if you increase your hours, if you decrease your hours, if you change jobs, if you stop working. Just like they don't automatically know when you get a job, they don't automatically know if you're not working any longer. So if you just stop sending in pay stubs, they're going to assume that you just stopped sending in your pay stubs, and they're going to want to know, or they're just going to assume that you're working those 20 hours, and they're going to adjust the check for that. I've actually met with somebody who had been working for a year, and his SSI check was still being adjusted as if he were working because he never told Social Security that he stopped working. So then that results in an underpayment. So whereas if you don't report at all, that results in an overpayment, meaning you're going to owe Social Security money. And an underpayment, they owe you money, but it can take a while to figure all of that out. And in the meantime, you could have that money in your account. So it's just really important to make sure that Social Security is informed of everything that you do as far as employment goes. There are other benefits other than SSI. There are Title II benefit, which The two that would be applicable here would be SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. So the younger you are, the less credits you have to put into the system in order to be able to qualify for disability benefits. So at your age, at transition age, it is 6 credits. So basically somebody can qualify for SSDI off of their own record and working as little as a year and a half. There are also childhood disability benefits. If an individual is over the age of 18 and they have a parent who is deceased, disabled, or retired, they could potentially collect a Title II benefit off of that parent's work record. And they're called childhood disability benefits. Sometimes they're also referred to as disabled adult child benefits or DAC benefits. So once, you turn 18, if you have a parent who is disabled, deceased, or retired, they will want you to apply for a Title II benefits. And you can have more than one. I've met with many people that have had, childhood disability benefits and SSI, or childhood disability benefits, SSDI, and SSI. So it's really important for my program to be able to verify all of your benefits from Social Security in order to give intensive services. Because the Title II benefit is looked at very differently than an SSI benefit. The biggest one being for SSI, you're always doing that calculation. For the Title II benefit, all or nothing benefit. So it really depends. And we would want to verify that because we wouldn't want to talk to you all about the student earned income exclusion and then find out that you have a Title II benefit because that doesn't apply to the Title II benefits. So what we do confirm your status with Social Security. We go over work history, education, any relevant personal facts, and then we go over scenarios of analysis of income. And then we discuss work incentives and address unusual circumstances such as overpayments. And then we will give the individual form letters if they would, like to apply for a certain work incentive. Sometimes you have to request that from Social Security. And we do write everything down that we talk about, and we send an individualized report to the individual. So after we would meet with somebody, we would write that all down in black and white and send that out to you so that if you have any questions in the future, you could look at the report. And things change. The report's a fluid document. People change jobs all the time. People start working, stop working. They may think they want to work 20 hours, making $8 an hour, but they get a job and they're working 25 hours, making $10 an hour. So we can certainly update that report at any time. After you would graduate school, we would, maybe update the report, not include the student earned income exclusion because then you wouldn't, be eligible for that any longer. So basically, and we do follow up. We never close an individual. Once you're open with us, you're open with us, unless you wish your record to be closed. So again, there's that fluid document. I mean, I've had people call me that I've met with 10 years ago, and they're still updating things. Circumstances change. So we look at all of that. And the easiest way for you to get our services is to call the Ticket to Work helpline, and there's the phone number for you. You can have somebody assist you in the referral process, but the individual, the beneficiary, has to be on the phone because they have to give permission for the referral. So the Ticket to Work helpline operator will say, do I have your permission to refer to the appropriate WIPA program? And then that beneficiary would have to say yes or no at that time. For transition-aged youth, they're automatically referred to our program. There's no criteria to meet as long as you meet our eligibility requirements. Transition-aged youth is a big focus for Social Security. Really want to try to get the kids that are in school out there working. It's a lot easier, to start working when you're in your 20s versus going out and trying to find that first job in your 50s. So Social Security really wants to make sure that the person feels comfortable. That's why they automatically get referred to our program. So they refer to our program, then I take the referral, assign it to a community work incentives coordinator, and they contact the beneficiary, confirm the benefits, and then do intensive counseling. So that is all I have currently.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. If anyone has any questions about Social Security, you now have a phone number that you can call, and you have the name of someone, Jenny Kistler, who can certainly answer questions that you might have about anything for your student related to Social Security.